Across the barren plateaus of southern Peru stretches a vast, silent geometry, lines and figures carved into the desert floor with astonishing precision. For centuries, the winds have swept over them, yet the designs remain untouched. More than 800 straight lines cut across miles of sand and stone, intersecting with spirals, triangles, and shapes so immense that only from the sky does their full form appear. From above, the desert becomes a gallery of giants, a spider, a hummingbird, a serpent coiling through the dust. These creations, known as the Nazca Lines, were drawn more than 2,000 years ago by a civilization that left no written record of its purpose. To trace these figures is to walk through a code written in earth, one that scientists still struggle to decipher. Some suggest the lines mark astronomical alignments or ritual pathways meant to honor deities of water and fertility. Others see them as vast calendars mapping the movement of stars. Yet the mystery deepens beyond the drawings themselves. Scattered through nearby burial grounds lie elongated skulls, remnants of a people who reshaped their own heads, perhaps as a mark of status or devotion. These artifacts, combined with the desert glyphs, have inspired countless theories about who the Nazca were and what they sought to communicate. In this arid trance, where the horizon blurs into eternity, the earth still speaks in patterns older than history, an enduring message from a vanished world that may never fully reveal its meaning. Southern Peru, 1927. In the foothills of the Nazca Desert, archaeologist Toribio Mejia Chespe trekked across a landscape baked by centuries of sun. From the ridge above the plain, he noticed something unusual. Faint, ruler-straight paths etched across the ground, stretching far beyond the horizon. At first, they seemed like remnants of ancient roads, forgotten and half buried by sand. Decades later, as aircraft began flying regularly over the region, a new perspective transformed curiosity into wonder. From the sky, the desert revealed an astonishing sight. An entire network of designs cut into the earth, covering nearly 200 square miles. These immense formations, later called geoglyphs, portrayed animals, flowers, and abstract symbols. Some even outlined a towering human-shaped figure, its arms raised toward the heavens. Collectively, these creations became known as the Nazca Lines, a gallery of geometry and life rendered on a scale almost beyond comprehension. Archaeologists have documented more than 800 linear markings, over 70 animal depictions, and around 150 geometric figures. Their diversity is striking. Hummingbirds, monkeys, fish, and countless triangles, spirals, and trapezoids that cross the desert, like coordinates of some forgotten map. The largest image stretches nearly 1,000 feet, roughly the length of 3 football fields, while the longest single line extends close to 9 miles. Yet their true nature only emerges from above. At ground level, they vanish into the monotony of the plain. Modern researchers attribute these works to the Nazca culture, which thrived in the region between the 1st and 8th centuries AD. The method was deceptively simple. By removing the thin layer of dark, iron-rich pebbles from the surface, the Nazca exposed the pale ground beneath. The lighter soil, rich in lime, hardened under the desert sun, resisting erosion. In this way, entire designs were drawn not with ink or stone, but with the absence of color. The stability of the landscape preserved their legacy. The Nazca Plain receives almost no rain, and the air remains dry and still year-round, without wind or water to disturb them. These delicate lines have endured for millennia, a message carved into the earth, preserved by the silence of the desert itself. Yet the Nazca Lines pose a question that has haunted researchers for nearly a century. Why did an ancient culture devote such effort to drawing colossal figures that could only be fully seen from above? What meaning lay behind their scale, their precision, their silent symmetry across the desert floor? From the ground, most of the lines appear as faint tracks leading nowhere. Only when viewed from the air does their design emerge. Animals, spirals, arrows, and trapezoids stretching in perfect alignment for miles. This paradox has given rise to theories that are as imaginative as they are diverse. Some have proposed that the Nazca people may have experimented with primitive flight, perhaps using hot air balloons woven from cotton and sealed with natural resins. If that were true, they could have seen their own creations from above. However, no material evidence supports this idea, and Spanish chroniclers who later documented Peruvian life described nothing resembling aerial technology. The absence of such records makes the balloon hypothesis highly unlikely. Mainstream archaeologists suggest more earthly explanations. The lines may have served ritual or astronomical purposes. Vast ceremonial pathways aligned with the rising and setting of stars, used in prayers for rain and harvest. Others see them as pilgrimage routes, guiding processions toward sacred sites or water sources essential for survival in the desert. Still, the scale of the designs remains extraordinary. Some lines extend for nearly 9 miles in perfect straightness, while enormous trapezoids and spirals sweep across the landscape as though charted by a surveyor's hand. Their accuracy implies a sophisticated understanding of measurement and geometry, knowledge entirely achievable without machines, yet demanding remarkable coordination and vision. Over time, the absence of clear evidence has drawn alternative interpretations. A few theorists propose that the lines might represent communication with something beyond the human realm. Messages meant for sky gods, or more controversially, for visitors from other worlds. Such claims remain speculative, unverified by archaeology, but they reflect a persistent human fascination with the unknown. What endures is the enigma itself. On the sun-bleached plateau of Nazca, where the air is still and the land remembers every mark, ancient hands inscribed shapes so vast that only the heavens could truly behold them. In the late 1980s, high above the arid plains of southern Peru, the Nazca Desert revealed its precision to those who ventured into its skies. From the cockpit of a small aircraft, the endless plateau unfolded in a mosaic of perfect lines and shapes. Among them lay a colossal triangle, nearly 6 miles long, its borders so exact that modern laser surveys would later confirm its near mathematical accuracy. The desert floor appeared as though it had been pressed downward, its surface compacted by some immense, unseen force, a mystery that continues to puzzle geologists and archaeologists alike. The Nazca culture had no metal tools, no machinery, and no means of flight. Yet across this harsh landscape, they carved forms so vast and straight that they challenge the limits of ancient surveying. The effort required, coordinating hundreds of workers over miles of terrain, suggests organization, intention, and an understanding of geometry that far exceeded what might be expected from a small desert civilization. Over time, theories multiplied. Some suggested that the Nazca Lines could only have been guided from above, that their creators might have received assistance or instruction from beings capable of flight. Others speculated that the figures functioned as celestial markers, navigational references not for humans, but for gods descending from the heavens. Still others proposed a more grounded explanation, that the lines may have symbolized communication with deities, drawn to be seen by divine eyes rather than human ones. A few researchers have drawn analogies between the Nazca markings and modern-day rover tracks on Mars, speculating that if extraterrestrial explorers had once sent robotic craft to Earth, their passage might have left behind impressions mistaken for sacred symbols. Such ideas remain unverified and are regarded as speculative by mainstream science. Yet their endurance reflects a universal human impulse to fill the silence of the unknown with stories of contact and creation. The ancient Nazca people, according to most scholars, were likely ancestors of the Inca Empire, which later rose to dominate the Andes in the 13th century. Within Incan mythology, The god Viracocha was said to have descended from the heavens to bring civilization and knowledge to humankind. Some legends claim that Viracocha himself commissioned or inspired the great desert glyphs as messages between the earth and the divine realm. Whether seen as myth or metaphor, these stories describe a deep belief that life and culture were gifts from celestial teachers. The connection between the Nazca Lines and the figure of Viracocha also intrigued modern writers. In 1968, Swiss researcher Erich von Däniken published Chariots of the Gods, proposing that many ancient monuments, including the Nazca geoglyphs, were created under the influence of extraterrestrial visitors. His interpretation captured public imagination, suggesting that early humans may have witnessed advanced technology and sought to honor what they saw. From the air, the lines resembled vast landing strips, not functional runways, but patterns that echoed the visual language of aviation. Von Däniken's ideas divided scholars. Engineers pointed out that the desert floor could never support the weight of aircraft, while archaeologists emphasized the simplicity of the Nazca technique, the careful removal of surface stones. Still, the image of the desert as a message to the cosmos lingered. Even today, the debate continues, spanning archaeology, anthropology, astronomy, and myth. More than 1,500 years after the last line was drawn, the plateau remains unchanged. Its shapes shimmer under the desert sun. Triangles, spirals, creatures frozen in motion, enduring as both artifact and question. Whether born of ritual devotion, ancient mathematics, or dreams of gods among the stars, the Nazca Lines stand as one of humanity's most haunting expressions of wonder, carved into the face of the earth. Among the endless shapes carved into the Nazca Plain, a quieter revelation has emerged, one not of myth or gods, but of mathematics. Some researchers studying the precision of the lines have proposed that these desert drawings may represent one of the earliest applications of practical geometry. The Nazca people, it seems, possessed a remarkable grasp of spatial reasoning. By connecting points across the plateau with cords or wooden stakes, they could project small-scale designs into immense ground figures that retained near-perfect proportions. To create such vast images required not only artistic vision, but a structured understanding of angles, distances, and ratios. Each design, whether a spiral, a trapezoid, or the outline of an animal, demonstrates a deliberate control of scale. In this sense, the Nazca Lines may be viewed as an early fusion of science and art, a dialogue between human intellect and the vastness of the landscape. But geometry was not their only compass. Many of the figures show possible alignments with the heavens above. Some archaeologists and archaeoastronomers have noted correlations between certain lines and the rising or setting points of significant stars and constellations. One of the most striking examples is a geoglyph depicting a spider whose elongated leg extends far beyond the body. When mirrored against the night sky, that extension appears to correspond to the position of Sirius, the brightest star visible from Earth, while the body aligns roughly with Orion, one of the most recognizable constellations in human history. Whether intentional or coincidental, such patterns reveal a worldview deeply rooted in cosmic observation. The Nazca, like many ancient civilizations, seem to have sought harmony between the earth and the heavens, mapping their myths, their rituals, and perhaps their hopes across both realms. For them, the desert may have been more than a canvas. It was a reflection of the sky itself, an attempt to bring celestial order down to human ground. Among the countless symbols etched into the Nazca Plateau, one figure rises above the others, literally and figuratively. Carved high on a hillside overlooking the desert stands a solitary humanoid, arm raised toward the horizon, as if signaling to something beyond the sky. Modern researchers call it El Astronauta, the astronaut. Its presence has become one of the most debated and evocative enigmas in Andean archaeology. To some scholars, the figure represents a mythic deity, a messenger between the heavens and the earth, part of the Nazca cosmology that linked celestial movements to human ritual. Yet others, particularly proponents of the ancient astronaut theory, interpret the image differently. They see in its round head and large eyes the likeness of a being equipped with a helmet, perhaps even a suit, an echo of the sky gods said to have once visited humankind. The raised arm could be a gesture of greeting or invocation, a symbolic wave to the heavens, a call for the gods to return. Such interpretations, while speculative, have captivated popular imagination for decades. They suggest that the Nazca Lines and their figures might not only honor divine visitors, but also serve as messages to the stars, immense symbols of recognition, drawn to signal the presence of humanity across the void. Modern investigations have introduced another layer of mystery. In the early 21st century, scientists from the University of Dresden conducted electromagnetic studies across portions of the Nazca Plain. Measurements revealed subtle but measurable anomalies in both the magnetic field and electrical conductivity beneath certain lines. In some areas, conductivity along the geoglyphs was reported to be thousands of times higher than in the surrounding soil. And at a depth of nearly 8 feet, the magnetic field showed distinct variations. The the results remain open to interpretation. Some researchers attribute these differences to natural mineral deposits, variations in soil composition, or the presence of nitrate-rich sediment. Others, more speculative in outlook, have suggested that the anomalies could point to something deliberately engineered beneath the surface, a possibility for which no physical evidence has yet been found. The plateau itself contains high concentrations of nitrates and other minerals associated with modern propellants and fertilizers. These substances occur naturally, but their abundance has fueled theories that Nazca might once have been chosen for reasons beyond ceremony. Ancient astronaut theorists have proposed that if an extraterrestrial civilization had ever come to Earth seeking resources, the Nazca Desert, with its rich nitrate beds and open, unchanging terrain, would have been an ideal landing site or extraction zone. In that view, the enormous runway-like lines could have functioned as beacons or markers, created either by the visitors themselves or by humans attempting to summon their return. While mainstream science rejects these ideas as lacking empirical foundation, the persistence of such theories reflects the enduring power of Nazca's enigma. The lines, after all, remain visible from space, messages written on a planetary scale, defying time, erosion, and simple explanation. Whether the Nazca people carved their geoglyphs as offerings to the gods, as instruments of astronomy, or as expressions of a longing for connection beyond the earth, their work still speaks across centuries. The dry wind whispers through the plateau, tracing the same outlines that have stood unchanged for nearly 2 millennia, a language of dund and light, waiting for someone or something to understand it. Every story of contact, real or imagined, reaches its conclusion. For those who believe the Nazca Plateau once hosted visitors from beyond the stars, the end came when those visitors simply moved on, leaving their vast symbols behind as traces of departure. Some theorists have suggested that the straight lines stretching across the desert were not only works of devotion, but also routes, guiding ancient travelers, perhaps even celestial ones, toward new destinations deep within the Andes. From this perspective, Nazca was not an isolated mystery, but part of a greater network. Certain lines appear to extend eastward, cutting directly through the mountain ranges, as if pointing the way toward something hidden beyond them. Roughly 400 miles away, on the wind-swept plains near Lake Titicaca, lies the monumental site of Tiwanaku, the heart of a civilization that flourished more than 1,000 years ago. Archaeologists recognize it as the ceremonial center of the Tiwanaku culture, but in the mythology of the Andes, it holds far older significance. To proponents of the ancient astronaut hypothesis, Tiwanaku stands as the next link in the chain, a destination marked by Nazca's cosmic roadways. Within its massive stone gates and intricately carved faces, they see a continuation of the same celestial narrative. Ancient legends describe Tiwanaku as a city founded under the guidance of beings known as the Sky People, followers of Viracocha, the great creator god of the Andes. In that mythology, Viracocha descended from the heavens to teach humanity the arts of civilization before vanishing once more into the sky. Some modern theorists connect these sky people to the same supposed extraterrestrial visitors who, they claim, inspired the Nazca Lines. They imagine Nazca as a kind of way station, a coastal outpost used to navigate inland toward Tiwanaku and its neighboring site, Pumapunku, both renowned for their megalithic precision. Whether this interpretation reflects literal contact or symbolic myth, the sense of continuity between these sacred landscapes is undeniable. Throughout this region, archaeologists have unearthed another curious link: the presence of elongated skulls in burial sites spanning from Nazca to Tiwanaku and Cuzco. Many of these remains exhibit cranial capacities up to 25% larger than the average human skull. The origin of this practice has long divided scholars. Some anthropologists attribute it to cranial deformation, a cultural custom achieved by binding infants' heads to produce the desired shape, a form of social identity or aesthetic expression found in several ancient societies. Others argue that the tradition's symbolic depth suggests something more profound. In the speculative view, the elongated skulls represented an imitation of the divine, an effort by ancient peoples to mirror the appearance of gods or beings they believed had once walked among them. The act of reshaping the human head could have served as both reverence and remembrance, preserving through the body itself the memory of contact with higher forms of life. However, mainstream archaeology remains cautious. No biological evidence supports the idea of a non-human origin for these skulls, and deformation has been widely documented across unrelated cultures worldwide. Still, the persistence of such legends reveals how profoundly the Andean civilizations intertwined the celestial and the earthly. In their stories, creation itself began with visitors from the sky, deities who brought light, knowledge, and order to the world below. Seen through that lens, Nazca, Tiwanaku, and Pumapunku form a single sacred geography, a triad of stone and soil aligned with myth, memory, and perhaps something more. Whether these connections represent spiritual maps, ceremonial roots, or echoes of long-lost encounters, they continue to stir both science and imagination. Among the many enigmas of the ancient Andes, none provokes more fascination or controversy than the mystery of the elongated skulls found across burial sites from Nazca to Tiwanaku. These remains bear proportions that challenge ordinary explanation. Some display cranial volumes estimated at a quarter larger than the modern human average. Archaeologists generally interpret these forms as the result of cranial modification, a ritual practice achieved by binding the heads of infants with cloth or boards, gradually reshaping the skull over time. The tradition is documented across many ancient societies, from the Maya to the Huns, serving as a mark of identity, nobility, or beauty. Yet not all scholars agree that this custom alone accounts for every specimen discovered in the Peruvian highlands. A few skulls appear to show no trace of mechanical deformation, prompting speculation that the practice may have originated as an imitation of something or someone else. In the mythology of the Andes, the creator god Viracocha was said to have fashioned humankind in his image before departing across the sea. To believers in the ancient astronaut hypothesis, such legends preserve memories of an earlier encounter between humanity and beings from the stars. They imagine Viracocha not merely as a symbol, but as a member of a race of tall, long-headed visitors who built the great megalithic temples of the Andes and inspired the Nazca geoglyphs. Mainstream archaeology sees no evidence for such visitors, but it is undeniable that both the Nazca and Tiwanaku cultures vanished abruptly around the turn of the first millennium. Their cities were abandoned, their rituals silenced, as though a shared event had swept across the region. Some geologists point to earthquakes or flooding near Lake Titicaca, which may have devastated local populations. Others, drawn by mythic imagination, speak of celestial conflict, a war of the gods that ended the age of contact. In that silence, the Nazca Plateau may have become a shrine to remembrance. Deprived of their teachers, the people might have turned to the desert as a message board to the heavens, carving vast figures across the sand in hope of summoning their return. The question of extraterrestrial contact soon expanded beyond Peru. Across continents, similar earthworks and geoglyphs have appeared, visible only from the sky, and often aligned with magnetic or geological anomalies. One such site lies far to the north, in the rolling hills of Ohio, United States. In 1848, surveyors from the Smithsonian Institution documented an immense earthen effigy. A serpent coiled in perfect symmetry for over a quarter mile, its body rising 3 feet above the forest floor. Known today as the Great Serpent Mound, it bears a striking resemblance to the Nazca designs, an enormous figure discernible only from above. Native American legend speaks of a plumed serpent, a divine being descending from the heavens. akin to the Mesoamerican god Quetzalcoatl. To ancient astronaut theorists, the similarity is more than coincidence. They see it as another echo of contact, another signal intended for watchers in the sky. But Serpent Mound also reveals a scientific enigma. It sits precisely on the rim of a vast meteor crater formed nearly 300 million years ago. The surrounding soil contains unusually high concentrations of iridium, a rare, highly conductive metal more common in meteorites than in Earth's crust. Samples from the region show iridium levels up to 10 times higher than normal background levels. Iridium's unique electrical properties have long intrigued researchers. In modern technology, it is prized for its resistance to heat and corrosion, and its ability to conduct energy under extreme conditions. For proponents of the extraterrestrial hypothesis, the alignment of the mound with such a deposit cannot be accidental. They suggest that these ancient sites, Nazca, Tiwanaku, Serpent Mound, may have been chosen for their geophysical energy, places where natural conductivity or magnetism created ideal beacons for contact. Mainstream scientists offer more grounded explanations. The mound's placement could reflect ceremonial significance rather than cosmic design, and the elevated iridium levels may simply be remnants of the ancient meteor impact. Yet, the resonance between these distant cultures remains haunting. Across time and continents, humans have shaped the Earth into patterns visible only from the air. Serpents, spirals, and gauze with outstretched arms, all gazing upward as if in dialogue with the sky. Perhaps that impulse, whether spiritual or scientific, defines the mystery itself. The desire to connect, to mark our presence beneath the stars, is a constant thread through human history. And in the lines of Nazca, the stones of Tiwanaku, and the coiled earth of Ohio, that message endures. An ancient reminder that we have always looked upward, wondering who or what might be looking back. Across the quiet hills of southern Ohio, the sinuous shape of the Great Serpent Mound coils through the forest, its body curving in precise arcs that stretch for more than a quarter mile. Some researchers have suggested that this monument may stand as a memorial, an earthly reminder of a presence that once descended from the stars. Ancient astronaut theorists argue that the mound's placement atop a prehistoric meteor crater is no coincidence. The surrounding soil contains abnormally high levels of iridium, a rare metallic element often associated with meteorites and prized today for its heat-resistant, highly conductive properties. They propose that such material might once have been mined as an energy source by otherworldly visitors. Its electromagnetic fields leaving behind subtle gravitational anomalies still measurable in the area, whether or not those claims hold merit. The Serpent Mound sits at the intersection of myth and geology, a convergence of natural magnetism, cosmic impact, and human imagination. Its spiraling body seems to gaze skyward, echoing the same impulse seen thousands of miles away on the Nazca Plain. Both landscapes share a common language, vast geometric patterns, discernible only from above. Decades after interest in Nazca surged, another phenomenon began to appear. This time, not in stone or sand, but in fields of grain. In Wiltshire, England, during the summer of 1978, farmers awoke to discover intricate circles pressed into their crops, formed overnight with startling precision. From the air, these patterns revealed complex mathematical relationships, spirals, concentric rings, and shapes resembling molecular structures. Like the desert glyphs of Peru, they could only be fully appreciated from the sky. Eyewitnesses occasionally reported luminous spheres drifting across the fields before the formations appeared. Such accounts inspired speculation that the circles were created by bursts of directed energy, brief flashes that flattened the crops without breaking their stems. Skeptics dismissed the stories as hoaxes, yet, even as many were proven man-made, a handful of formations continued to defy easy explanation. Their symmetry, scale, and speed of creation suggested methods beyond ordinary craftsmanship. To ancient astronaut theorists, these modern glyphs represented a continuation of an age-old dialogue. If the Nazca Lines were the first messages carved into the earth for celestial eyes to see, then the crop circles might be the next chapter, a renewed attempt at communication, updated for a new age. The medium had changed from stone to wheat, but the geometry remained the same. Circles, spirals, ratios, and alignments that mirrored universal constants. Mathematics, after all, is a language that transcends species and worlds. Mainstream science remains cautious. Most circles are human art projects. A few may result from natural meteorological effects. Yet the phenomenon's persistence, its recurrence across continents, continues to intrigue psychologists, physicists, and believers alike. Perhaps the real message lies not in their origin, but in their pattern, an enduring symbol of humankind's fascination with contact. As satellite technology expanded our view of Earth, similar mysteries surfaced far from Europe or the Americas. In 2011, aerial surveys and high-resolution images revealed vast clusters of stone wheels scattered across the deserts of Syria, Jordan, and Saudi Arabia. First documented by early pilots in the 1920s, these circular formations number in the thousands, ranging from 80 to more than 200 feet wide. From the ground, they resemble scattered stones. From above, they form precise geometric wheels with radiating spokes. To archaeologists, these are ancient enclosures, perhaps ritual spaces or burial markers dating back more than 2 millennia. But to proponents of the extraterrestrial hypothesis, they form part of a global network of aerially visible symbols, aligned across latitudes and longitudes, as though connected by a shared geodetic plan. From Peru to the Middle East, they see the same motif: circles and lines linking distant cultures, a silent cartography stretching across hemispheres. Modern technology, particularly Google Earth, has made it possible to trace these alignments from orbit. Some researchers now refer to them collectively as Nazca-like phenomena, designs that reveal themselves only when viewed from above. The recurrence of this aerial geometry, they argue, may signify humanity's ancient attempt to communicate with beings who navigated the planet from the skies. What, then, might these symbols on? Are they remnants of a celestial navigation system guiding travelers across the globe? Or are they expressions of something more abstract, a universal mathematical language intended to bridge the gulf between worlds? In 1972, the cosmologist Carl Sagan proposed that if intelligent life existed elsewhere in the universe, its first form of communication would be through mathematics. Numbers, proportions, and geometry are constants. A circle remains a circle anywhere in the cosmos. If such communication were ever attempted, it might begin not with words, but with patterns, shapes recognizable to any rational mind. From this perspective, the great geoglyphs of the earth, whether carved in rock, pressed into grain, or laid in stone, become more than relics of art or ritual. They could represent humanity's instinctive attempt to reach beyond itself, to speak in the only truly universal language we possess. Perhaps these symbols are echoes of that conversation, scattered across the planet and across time, waiting to be understood. Even if no voices ever answered, the earth still carries those messages, etched into desert floors, traced into mountain plateaus, inscribed in fields of wheat each summer, reminding us that for thousands of years we have looked upward, not in fear, but in longing, wondering who might be listening in return. In the stillness of the Peruvian desert, the lines remain, carved into the earth like thoughts preserved in stone. They do not speak, yet they endure. Wind has crossed them, rain has almost never touched them, and the sun has traced the same slow circle above them for 2,000 years. Across that time, their meaning has changed, yet their presence has not. To some, they are pathways of prayer, vast rituals of devotion linking the human and the divine. To others, They are maps of the heavens, mirrors of the constellations above, or messages drawn for gods who once walked the earth. And to a few, they are remnants of contact, silent communications between worlds, written in the universal language of geometry. But perhaps the truest mystery of the Nazca Lines is not who made them, nor even why, but what they reveal about us. For as long as humans have looked upward, we have searched for reflections of ourselves in the sky, shaping our questions into art, into numbers, into symbols that might one day be answered. Each civilization, from Tiwanaku to Egypt, from the builders of Serpent Mound to those who shaped the crop circles of modern fields, has added its own mark to that dialogue. And perhaps, together, they form not separate stories, but one continuous message, humanity's eternal wish to be understood by the universe. Maybe the gods never returned. Maybe they were never here. Or maybe their answers have been hidden all along, waiting in the patterns of wind and light that pass each evening across the desert. What matters is that we are still listening, still asking, still tracing the same invisible lines between ourselves and the stars. In every age, beneath every sky, humankind has tried to speak across the silence, to tell creation that we are here, that we remember, and that we are ready to understand. The Nazca Lines remain our oldest whisper in that conversation, a message written on the skin of the earth, for any who can see from above, or perhaps for any who can still look up and wonder.